With the sheer amount of negative changes YouTube has made to the platform and the amount of people whose main way of making money is YouTube, it makes you think, will YouTube last forever? Let's talk about it. Good morning, this is Niles Marshall, host of Morning Hot Chocolate, and today we're going to be talking about a very important topic. Is YouTube gonna last forever? And of course, you know, there's gonna be some people in the comments that's gonna be like, actually nerd, due to the heat death of the universe, YouTube actually isn't gonna last forever. You're an idiot, did I? Well, duh, of course, that's, you know, YouTube, when I say YouTube lasts forever, I'm not actually thinking YouTube's gonna last forever. I'm more talking about, you know, YouTube's dominance in the, you know, ad market and being the dominant way of watching videos. In that sense, is YouTube gonna last forever? Well, but so before we even talk about YouTube getting replaced or something, or getting deleted or something, we have to talk about how big YouTube actually is. And according to some statistics from this Google Al overview, supposedly there's 2.70 billion monthly active users. That's like a third of the globe watching YouTube at least once a month. And the globe is pretty big, so that's a lot of people. And look at this, over 500 hours of video are uploaded every minute, which is just crazy. And also 1 billion hours of video is watched every day. So yeah, YouTube is a pretty big platform. It's the dominant video sharing website, period. However, there's some things I want to talk about maybe getting replaced or stuff and blah blah. Question 1. Could YouTube be replaced as the dominant video sharing website by a different video sharing website? So something like Odyssey or just something else. And to that, I can say probably not, because YouTube, as I just mentioned, is really big. So for alternative to actually come up, I mean, either YouTube had to be so bad of a viewing experience to where someone would just rather watch a whole new website, and not the one they're used to, or alternative to YouTube had to be so good, so maybe like no ads or absolute freedom of speech, you know, to where someone would go, you know, I don't want to watch YouTube today. I don't want to watch YouTube today. I'll just rather watch this, because I might get a better experience from watching this. And, you know, in all honesty, I don't really think that would happen. I'd like that to happen, so there's just a better way to share videos to people and make better, and, you know, not have to watch a bajillion ads for every time you want to watch a puppy do a trick or something. But yeah, that probably won't happen. Question 2. What would it take to make people swap from YouTube to something like Odyssey? If you don't know what Odyssey is, the thing I'm referring to, Odyssey is an alternative video sharing website that's a lot more free of speech, and stuff like shadow banning isn't a thing. So that's an alternative to YouTube that could work. However, as I mentioned, for something like Odyssey to take over YouTube, it would have to beat YouTube in quality of life. And if Odyssey couldn't do that, then it has no actual way of competing against YouTube. It's just another website to share videos on, not a competitor to YouTube. However, something I can much more feasibly believe is, could people's interest in video span make something like TikTok be the dominant force? That, I think, has a lot more chance of happening, because TikTok is the best way to, you know, share short form content. Simple as that. And I'm thinking, you know, perhaps with the shorting it, with the smaller and smaller attention spans people are getting nowadays, I'm thinking TikTok could just be the new strongest way to entertain someone, and then also have the most, you know, power in advertisements and viewer and viewer value. However, a much more likely outcome to YouTube is that it may never actually get beaten in the long form video content. However, I think it's definitely possible that it'll lose its power as the #1 video sharing website, and I think TikTok might be the website to beat YouTube. However, I think YouTube will always be the king of long form content, because as I was researching this video, something I discovered is YouTube is like the biggest library of videos, which kind of sounds obvious, but you kind of forget that YouTube is the only website that really has that kind of power. The power to have like a 15-year-old video be just as enjoyable and just as valuable to its website than a video 2 days ago. Every other website just doesn't have that uniqueness. It's all like, you know, once a fad is over, it's on to the next fad, and the past fad is no longer existent on that website in question, like Instagram or Snapchat or something. YouTube, however, everything, if it's good or funny enough, it will stay on the website forever, which is pretty cool. And something like TikTok can't really do. I mean, I guess the videos are always on the person's profile, but you go to YouTube for longevity. So I guess so while TikTok may eventually beat YouTube, I don't think TikTok will win the war in having a quality library of videos. Speaking of a video library, that takes us to our fifth question. At what point will YouTube turn from a massive active network of creators and advertisements to just a library of videos? And that, I would say, a very long time. Because, you know, the only way for that to happen is if enough people to get sick of YouTube, or the people who pay YouTube, like advertisers and stockholders and crap, if they get sick of YouTube, they're gonna, you know, abandon ship. So when that happens, then YouTube may just become a video library. I don't think there's ever gonna be a thing where YouTube will die. YouTube will always be around, it will always be alive until the eventual death of the universe. However, I don't think. However, there'll definitely be a point to where it will just be a storage of videos as opposed to a big way of making money. But I guess actually that does kind of beg the question, since the only way YouTube stores the amount of videos it has is due to its massive amount of servers. If you would ever get to the point to where YouTube isn't making money, is it possible that YouTube will just shut down the servers and then therefore all videos on those servers just go kapooey? That would really suck. But if YouTube were to ever lose, it could actually be a lose for us also, because we could lose out on a massive library and history of videos, which would really suck, because if you like grew up as a child on YouTube, those videos are just gone, and there's nothing you can do about it other than cry in a pillow. However, as I said, I don't think this will happen for a long time. I'm thinking like at the earliest, it'd be like 30 to 60 years. Like, just as like my guess for how long YouTube's gonna be the dominant way of making money for both itself and creators. I think in conclusion, YouTube will probably be around for a very long time, or at least until the eventual apocalypse happens, but you know, then that won't be a priority. My best guess is that YouTube will always have a cemented place on the internet due to its reputation and just the sheer amount of videos it already has. Because TikTok, you know, it's still pretty new and doesn't have that many videos to its name. YouTube has 20 years of content under its belt, and that will always keep growing and growing, and which just kind of makes it a lot more powerful. And you can't really compete against something unless you really had better policies than YouTube or YouTube just really sucked. However, as I mentioned, I think different video sharing websites like TikTok or maybe even something else new could beat out the whole biggest kid on the block sort of thing. Like basically like TikTok or a different website would make more money or be a better place for creators than stockholders to go to as opposed to YouTube. However, YouTube will, no matter what, will always be the #1 long form content unless something really bad would happen to its policies or a better website were to take it over, which is slim to none. With today's discussion wrapped up, now would be ideal time to press the subscribe and like button respectively, so you can ensure you have a good video to wake up to every morning. This is Niles Marshall signing off, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.